So we don't choose the boat privilege we come into this world, but all of us really have the power to see what we can do with the privilege that we have. And in my presentation, I will show you 4 ways that I actually started to use the privilege that I have. One is by making a purchase, the other one with your own business, the third one with a charity, and the fourth one while traveling. And today I will put the focus a bit more on number 3 and 4. So number 1 and 2, I try to speed it up a bit, but again, I hope that I finish on time. This is me when I was 6 years old. I was born in Germany and I moved to the Netherlands. And yeah, I did not become a pianist, obviously. I became a judge lawyer in public international law, specialized in law rights, with a focus on children's rights, actually. Because when I went to the Netherlands when I was 6 years old, I got separated from my brother. And during my childhood, I had a lot of ups and downs. And I always thought that children have no voice. Especially I, as a kid, thought that I didn't really have a say about anything. So that's why I specialized in children's rights. And then I also realized that the Dutch law wouldn't stuck in the Netherlands forever. And in order to travel, live abroad, since my family is from Germany and also from Italy, I wanted to have this opportunity, and I ended up with international law. And if you put together international law and children's rights, you actually end up with one of the worst crimes in history, I would say, which is child soldiers. So in 2009, I went to Uganda, and not only Uganda, I traveled to many other privileged countries. I worked at the EU in China for some time for human rights issues, and then at one point I just realized that I prefer to be more on the spot, do more field work, and not just sit in the office behind my computer. And that's when I exchanged my office for a nomadic lifestyle, which was in 2012. And yeah, no more fancy clothes. I was literally wearing flip-flops for, I think, almost a decade. So this is where actually the first time I really realized what impact your purchase has, namely when you are actually buying something. Whatever you buy, really think about who bought it, who made it, and what's the impact of your purchase. Because it can be either very negative, or it can be very positive. So in my case, I bought from Susan, that's the woman in the flower dress, bracelets in 2009. And had met her during my research about girl child soldiers in Uganda. I was 23 years old myself back then, and Susan was 25. And I still really remember the first time I met her. It was in a stone hut with those metal roofs, and it was raining and it was so loud. I tried to interview her, but I could almost not understand one word she was saying because it was super loud. If you have ever been in African countries and you know how it's like to sit in one of those small huts, you probably will know what I'm talking about. And I still get like shivers when I actually think about it. So she shared with me her story, how she got abused when she was just 12 years old. She got married off to some soldiers. She got pregnant with her first child. Then with 14, she got pregnant again from a soldier, second child. And 2 years later, her third child. So being my age, 2 years older than me, 25, I was 23, she already had 3 children who were teenagers because she got them so young. And Susan was also HIV positive that she got from one of the soldiers. She had cancer, tuberculosis, basically just anything you can imagine. So you might not think like, oh my God, like this sounds like her life is going to end, right? So it didn't, because Ida, who's on the left of me, she was back then our translator. She was translating between me and Susan. And Susan was actually not just sharing her story of misery, but she was actually showing so much energy and power, how she was not giving up on life, how she was fighting for herself, for her kids. So even being illiterate, Susan made bracelets out of recycled paper. In this map, you just see where Uganda is. So it's actually East Africa around Lake Victoria. And here you see Susan in front of her house together with her neighbor and children of her neighbor. So this was the house where I was back then with Susan. And yeah, she was sharing her story with me. And I tried to write down as much as possible as I could. And then, because she was so happy that someone was actually listening to her, she gifted me those bracelets out of recycled paper. And I was only 23 years old, so initially I felt like, okay, what on earth can I give back to her? Because I was a student myself. But for her, it was already so great to just be heard and let someone listen to her story. That was already for her a big step to even get more motivated to make an impact on her own life and that of her family. And what's also very interesting about Uganda, when I came there in 2009, it was even more extreme than now, because back then I remember the average age was 15 of the people, so basically of children, right? And I remember when I lived there for a few months, it was so good to come back to Europe and see elderly people again, because you can't imagine how it is. You have almost no older people. Everyone was super, super young, because many people died during the war or from AIDS. Now, thankfully, it went up a little bit, but still the average age is not as high as in European countries. Then when I met Susan, she was not only making beautiful jewelry out of recycled paper beads, she and her kids were actually pressing stones in a stone quarry. To explain a little bit why child labor still exists up until today. So Susan, she actually fled from North Uganda during the war to Kampala, the capital of Uganda. And North Uganda and Kampala, they have different culture, different language. Everything is basically different. Then it's one country. It's only because the colonial people at one point took a measurement tape or how it's called, and they just draw the lines in the African continent. Like this is a country now, that's a country, this is a country. But if you look at it cultural-wise, linguistic-wise, a lot of stuff doesn't make sense. And for Susan and the people who fled to Kampala, they were highly discriminated against because they could not communicate. And if you can't communicate, on top of being illiterate, there's not much work you can find. So they all started to settle around a very big stone quarry in Kampala where they were crushing stones. When I met Susan, she was already so weak that she was not crushing stones herself anymore, but the children did. And she started to make recycled paper beads, because that was something she at least could do at home in the shadow, just rolling out beads from recycled paper, while the other people were in the quarry. Even up to today, but they were all, when you find out about our charity, you already got about 500 kids out of the stone quarry, so they're not there anymore. But Susan, so she started to make those paper beads from recycled paper. And in 2009, she gifted me some of her bracelets. And then once a year, I would just order a big parcel from her and just give it to all my friends and family members and to everyone to support her business. But back then, we were not famous stars yet. But with the money that I actually sent once a year to Susan, 4 years later, 2012, I went back to Uganda. And then to my big surprise, I was really nervous. I was even more nervous back then than I'm on stage right now, and I'm nervous now. So you can imagine how nervous I was when I was in his place in Uganda. Because you always hear those stories about money never reaches, people will probably just drink alcohol with the money you send, and so on. And since Susan was illiterate, it was not that people were sending emails back and forth or anything like that. So when I went to Uganda in 2012, I was super scared to find out what actually happened to her. But then to my big surprise, and I don't have any words for it, she came running up to me, hugged me, and literally started to talk fluent in English to me, which she before didn't, because we only had a translator translating between us. But she actually really went to school and also sent her kids to school. So in case you wonder who is Susan, Susan is completely down the left. And then the other, those are her kids. So, and she also sent them to school because even her oldest son only started school when he was 12 years old and he was illiterate before. And this really, really inspired me a lot because then I realized that, yeah, whatever you buy, it really has an impact. So really try to buy locally, see from whom you're buying, and really be aware that you can literally change someone's life with it. But it also inspired Susan and me to start our own business. So we set up the 22 Stars jewelry web shop and started to sell paper bead jewelry for a couple of years. At one point we stopped basically with the social jewelry business. This happened on the first Nomad cruise, where I met a lot of digital nomads and we had a lot of masterminds where I was sharing all of my downside pop-up stories. So where we were actually losing money and not making money. And then this is also why actually there is such a special place right now. It's run by all those nomads with all those different backgrounds, different ideas. So really make use of it, really try to connect with as many people as possible and get some ideas in. Because after all those masterminds and racing sessions and going to all the talks and workshops, I actually realized that in our case, it's better to have a charity and not be constantly dependent on the Western market. Because the dinner is still not really independent. It was still like, Stella, did you sell our jewelry? No, I didn't. Why not? Well, it was raining. No one showed up. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I had a feeling that I was not impacting them as much as I wanted. So I started a charity. But of course, before actually I switched to this topic, I don't want to discourage people who have a social business. So also when you have your own business, try to think about it. Who do you employ? Where is the product coming from? What type of paper do you use? Or do you actually need to print everything? Can you do stuff digital? If you have coffee in your office, where's your coffee coming from? And so on and so forth. And our success story is actually still our bracelets. That product still works quite well. You can also find them at the booth outside of the Bansko for people. But the other stuff that I can share more about another time. So yeah, now about the charity. So in addition to our product-based model, we started the donation-based model. And our focus is entrepreneurship, education, and local leadership. Especially entrepreneurship as well. Because I always wanted to start a social business to help people from poverty, but making sure that they actually help themselves. And with a charity, I always thought like, okay, you're just dropping money there, and then what? People become dependent on your donations. But then thanks to this masterminds with the nomads, they said like, well, actually you can still keep doing also the business side of them, but focus more on local businesses. So nowadays, the women are not producing jewelry for the Western market, but they're actually producing clothes which they sell in Uganda, or they're making, for example, school uniforms for the children in Uganda. And they run anything from hair salon to butchery. They sell as market vegetables. They just do everything as possible. And we help them with small business trainings and microloans. And then, of course, we are sending their children to school, because most of the children, they're actually orphans. And then, of course, we cannot ask them to start working for their own school fees. And our team on the ground, they're actually Ugandan and Francesca me. Francesca's our remote project assistant, and I'm also not that often in Uganda. It's to the Nomad community that we set up our team partly remote, because one person works in Kampala, the other one in Jinja. Francesca works from, well, wherever the laptop is. Partly in Uganda, partly also from anywhere. But yeah, we set up everything in Google Drive, we have WhatsApp channels to organize everything, and when people are sponsored, we send them school reports 3 times a year. And as I already mentioned, we also help the parents of the children, so they also stay connected. A lot of programs with the children, so we don't only send them to school, we do a lot of things with the whole community. So our social impact trips, we really try to promote the tourism, we really try to show people also the beautiful things. Plus, nowadays with the internet, and since we are all about education and making our kids literate, they are also very good to find our Instagram accounts. And I think people agree that no one would like to see a picture of themselves as a little child with a stopping belly or things like this. So that's why also on our social media accounts, we really try to focus on how you get in stuff, your daily routines, and we put that in the spotlight. So wherever you travel, even if it's Cambodia, Brazil, if you go and visit a grassroots organization, really trying to make it about them and not so much about yourself, and really highlight the work they do. So these are our social trips we organize in Uganda. You will see later more about it if you're going to scan this link on Linktree, because we made a short video from our kids in Uganda saying hello to you. So if you scan it, the first thing you will see will be hello, Nomad Days Bansko, Nomad Fest Bansko, for the children in Uganda, and there's a little slideshow in it where you will see a lot of pictures from our project. We try to keep things realistic, so not to only post, let's say, suitable pictures, but also not only, like I mentioned, on property. So, I think if you have a look at the slideshow, you get an even better idea how it's like being